Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms, and of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Hey, Jackie. So nice to meet you. Thanks for joining me on a Saturday.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's springtime. You've got a lot going on in 2025. I think we're on the doorstep of a song release, right? I think it's called That's the Spirit. Is that right?
Yes. I wrote it with Bobby Tomberlin and Kurt Gibbs. God, I want to say it was during the summer because I remember it being really hot. And I remember going out the night before for karaoke, so I was like miserable. And I was like, I can't miss my meeting at Curb. Why did I do this to myself? And I got into the room and the guys were like drinking their coffee, just waking up. And I was like, I don't know why, but I just feel like writing a party song, even though I feel miserable.
And this is all leading up to, I think, an album release later this year. I guess, how many songs will make the album, do you think? And will you be sprinkling other releases for the next few months?
I will tell you that we wrote 9 over 5 days, and then I added some that I'd been sitting on. So really, if I revamped all the singles into a full album, it would have like 12 to 14 songs on it.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. We rented like this huge mansion in Joshua Tree, and I got some of the best songwriters in Nashville to come out. Steve Fee, who has like multiple hits on the radio right now. Jordan Gray, who has been writing for Morgan Wallen. Jesse Slack, who's from Canada. Always got to have one from Canada. And I had him on the whole album. There was separate songs that I wrote with him that have made it onto the album. But there's just something that Jesse and I connect with writing wise. And then my producer, Jason Mader, was also in all those sessions. So, it's funny because like you don't ever think of a producer as also a songwriter, but I definitely see the value in having him in the room as a songwriter because he can hear symphonies in his head while we're writing. So he knows like, well, let's try this cadence because he can hear music already, so he kind of sets up the melody sometimes and sets up the words. So I really appreciate my producer so much. And then of course I brought my guitarist, Christian Pond, who has been very loyal and amazing to me. So I got to reciprocate. And so he came on the trip and helped write some songs too. So.
Great. Will the album have a name? Or, obviously it'll have a name. Does it have a name yet, I should say?
God, I haven't thought of that. It's kind of, it's hard when you want to put one name on a full project because I don't think one word could just wrap it all up, because I go from literally like almost a heavy metal country song to like an Island in the Breeze song. So there's so much contrast. I really got to think on that. And maybe it won't have a title. I mean, there's some that just come out as, self,
right.
Jackie Roar or whatever. So.
Well, I think a lot to talk about in terms of music. We'll get to that, but just rewind a little bit. Obviously, you're probably now most famous for your incredible run on The Voice season 24, which I think was probably a year ago that all kind of wrapped up, right?
Yeah, in December, yeah.
Yeah, and then and you've been in Oregon for a number of decades. I think you're originally from Chicago, but you're out in Oregon now. And I think you were raised by your mom and traveling around as she supported the family. There's a lot to talk about, but I guess what's life been like since the end of The Voice?
I think that Oregon has been really supportive to me and my music since The Voice. I think before I was kind of moving in the music industry, people were, finally starting to hire me for certain things before The Voice even happened. I also owned a karaoke business, so it was like you could hear me any night of the week if you wanted to come hear me sing and just sit in the room and drink a beer, I would get tipped to sing karaoke. Like, can you sing Janis Joplin? And they would tip me $20 to sing a song. I'm like, yeah, I'll sing for $20. Now it's like way different. Now it's like I have meet and greets after the show, which was the first time that happened. Kind of was a shock for me because I didn't realize how many people were invested in me, and I didn't even have a release yet. I hadn't, I wasn't allowed to release music yet. So I had my Lace and Thorn stuff, which was my previous band before I went solo.
Right.
And that's all they really had to listen to was that. So the first time, I think it was like at the Salem Grand Historic Theater, I want to say like almost 400 people showed up. It was like pretty much a sold out show. And my episode had already aired, so people knew I was on The Voice. And I had people that had printed out their own photos of me on The Voice and wanted me to sign it and wanted me to take pictures. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually life altering. Then you get off the show. And mind you, I'd been gone for 6 months, here and there. I came back home for like 3 weeks, but this was like a 6-month taping. I have to transition from living in a hotel room with all these contestants that you kind of build a friendship and relationship with, right? To, I don't see them daily anymore. I talk to Huntley and Steve like weekly and Tom once a month, but I don't really talk to them anymore, right? I go from that to transitioning to being a mom again. And that was kind of like, oh my God, I used to do this. Like, I don't know what was harder. Getting up at 5 a.m. every morning and waiting around to have my makeup done and hair done and have adrenaline going through you all day because you got to sing a freaking song in front of the nation, or being at somebody's toddler teacup human beck and call every time they say mom. I don't know what's worse. But once I transitioned back into my home life, then I had to find a balance, and I've been my own booking team. For a while, I had management. I'm back to doing it on my own. I feel like it's easier when I have control of what I'm doing. I can say yes or no to what I want to do instead of what somebody else thinks I should do. And not to say they ever pressured me or anything. I have nothing but nice things to say about my management team. But I just thought it was time for me to kind of like get back into the roots of what I'm doing and really hone in on my artistry. So that's what we did. We did it. We got the album going. It was, I want to say all me, but it wasn't all me. I also had another, it wasn't like a management team. It was people that were supporting my music and instead of like supporting my brand, so.
Got it. Will the songs that you started to release last year after the program, will they make the album? Like, I think like Bad Habit and some of those songs, or will it be some newer things, sort of a different?
I think that
different
Bad Habit, Learn About Love, Pass the Pain On, those are songs that I released coming off of the show, and they've been established as singles. I might re-release Learn About Love. I might remake it, make it just a little bit faster, kind of edge it up a little more even like throw in a slide guitar. I don't know yet, but definitely Learn About Love will be making the album again. I don't know about Bad Habit. We haven't discussed it because since it was my first release solo project, I feel like that's my baby and it just needs to sit on like a little pedestal on its own. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, people don't view it as albums anymore. They really they go hit play, and then get asked every once in a while for a CD and I'm like, oh, I forgot we still have those,
By the way, the whole daughter situation while you were on the show, you mentioned 6 months. I mean, did you see her very much at all, or was it very sporadic?
Well, now that I'm off the show and I can say certain things that I was hiding back then, the first part of the show, the very first time that you exit the airport to go to the show, you arrive at this hotel and they kind of give you a timeline, right? But it's supposed to be about 30 days that you're going to be away from home. You're not supposed to see your family. You're not supposed to see your friends. Like, you have a 10-minute radius as to which you can leave the hotel because you need to be available at a call. If for some reason they're done early with something else, they have to be like, okay, you're in 10 minutes, get to the studio. And so you have to be there. But for 45 days is what it essentially was. 45 days, I was not supposed to see my family. I couldn't wait 45 days. So at the 3-week mark, I called my co-parent and I'm like, whatever you got to do, bring my kid to me. And so luckily I have a great relationship with my ex and he has family in California. So it all worked out. I got to see my baby and, it still was hard because then it was another 2 weeks that went by that I didn't get to see her, it was 5 weeks basically. So when I did see her, because they bring them in for the B-roll interviews at that time, and my season, we were only allowed 2 people. So I had my fiance and my daughter. It was kind of a bummer because I wanted my stepdaughter out as well, but they wouldn't allow it. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come. But the good news is I made it up to her later. Anyways, long story short, it was very difficult. I even asked that initially in our first Zooms. You're in a room of 115 people that have made it on the show. Not made it, but made it to blinds, basically. And I was like, does anybody else have kids in here? And like, how are you guys dealing with it? And one gal was like, I did this last season. I didn't make it through to the blinds, but here I am again. And I just want to vouch that it is easy because there's so much that you have to do that it kind of just time flies. That was not the freaking case. She absolutely bold-faced lied because for like 2 weeks we had nothing to do because, they are rotating contestants. So we're sitting by the pool. Me and Nene were sitting there and I'm like, she goes, I just want to get to work. It's been like 2 weeks. And I go, I am manifesting that we're on the schedule tomorrow. I was like, we're going to get their schedule 6:00. You and me, we're going in together, manifesting. She goes, manifest, slay. And then we got our schedule and we both were on the schedule. Yeah.
When you were in that process, was it kind of a bizarro world? I mean, was it just kind of make believe?
I would say that it was really almost like, okay, I'd never been in anything like it before. Now, mind you, I was on American Idol season 13.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So there is a complete contrast difference of how things go down. Like, now, I don't know what it's like now that they've sold it because I'm in the older seasons, right? But I will tell you that I was absolutely miserable at American Idol. They treated me like crap. They treated all the contestants like crap. And you could tell which ones were the favorites that they wanted in the top. You could absolutely tell. And they were just mean. They were never like, oh, how are you doing? It was like, get up, get to your station. Like, what are you doing in here? Like, what are you still doing here? Why are you trying to talk to me right now? Like that's how they would talk to us. Whereas in The Voice, even the contestants, and I can't say for every season, I just know we got a lot of feedback on our season from the staff that said we were the most kind, we were the most supportive of each other, we were the most respectful, and we were the most like lively, energetic, happy bunch. And so I think we just had the coolest season because of that. We had barely any drama. I mean, I could tell you like 2 people that had drama, and that was it. And I'm not gonna tell the beef because it ain't mine, but other than that, I would say The Voice was absolutely the most awesome experience from start to finish. They always make you feel informed, first of all. They're always informing you of what's going on, what they expect of you. They give you your schedule the night before so you know what time you have to be up, so you know what time to go to bed. They give you per diem so you're fed. They give you enough time to have your hair, makeup done. Now, in the first couple rounds, you're doing almost all of it. You got to show up. They do the touch-ups, right? In the lives is when you get like the Hollywood treatment. I'm a low maintenance girl anyways, so it was like I was always in and out really quick. I didn't want like crazy stuff going on. I think it was more of like a songwriters camp, I would say. My room was the jam session room, 8 to 8, first 45 days. Everybody came to my room almost every freaking night of the week. We were doing a jam session. We were singing our hearts out. We weren't allowed to have alcohol, so I would do like these little mocktail mixers and everybody. I mean, 115 people on the season. And I would say there was 11 people left when Kala got the final spin. So they went through pretty much all of them. So yeah, I would say to anybody that wants to try out for The Voice, it is a little stressful, but if you have the right people around you the whole time supporting you the way that I did with Bias, Nene, Lila, Tom, Huntley, Steve, Mara, then you're golden, because anytime you feel stressed out, you just knock on somebody's door and you're good.
No, that's great. By the way, the album could be called 828. There you go. Just tuck that one away.
I didn't think about that. It's funny because when I said this in another interview, like, I don't know, coming off the show, I said that my room number was 828, and somebody had messaged me and told me that if that was true and that was my room from the beginning, that was a divine number from God, because it means success. It means like divine success. So I just thought that was kind of crazy that somebody messaged me that, and I had no idea that 828 was a number of success. I'm thinking lucky number 7 or something. I've never heard of 828. So it was kind of cool to get that message and be like, wow, maybe it was a destiny type thing,
Totally. I guess the one question I want to ask about American Idol was that was the season when everybody basically got sick, right?
Yeah. They made it look like we were so stressed out that we were vomiting everywhere, right? And that wasn't the case. The case was every day we had a buffet that we could eat from. They didn't give us per diem. They just had a meal set up for us, and it was a buffet. And I remember saying and there was a flu that was going around. So it was 2 things. It was food poisoning and it was a flu. Unfortunately, the girl that was on my team, she was homeless and she was very sick. And I got sick from her because I was helping take care of her. She didn't have anything. She barely even had clothes. So I was letting her use my shower, like my shampoo, my stuff, because I felt so bad for her, so I wanted to support her. And of course I got sick from her, which sucked. And then I was dehydrated, and that's what caused the fainting, was that I was so dehydrated that they had to put an IV in me. And then after I'd fainted, instead of giving me time to, like, once you faint or you fall asleep, your voice relaxes. Or tightens up again. So it's like you just woke up. They didn't give me any time to warm up, nothing. And then when they put me up there, I was like so weak from just having fainted. And I wasn't even supposed to go up right then. We still had like 10 groups before it was our turn. But because I fainted, they wanted to push me up there. And
oh my God.
I was like, I couldn't believe. I would just, it made me want to quit music, to be honest with you. And I did quit music for like 2 years because of it. It gave me really bad anxiety. I didn't want to perform in front of anybody. And the edit that they gave it was like, they were talking throughout our whole process, like the group round, like, oh, help him sing. Like, oh my God, Jacquie, that's horrible. They didn't say one word like that, by the way. They were just like, okay, step forward. They said nothing. They didn't say, Jacquie, we didn't like the belting or whatever. They just were like, okay, Matheny, you're next. You're going to the next round, and nobody else is moving on. So it was just like.
So it was basically all edited and produced and everything.
Yeah, they made it look like I was the worst singer in the world, which is fine because I came back with a vengeance. The song that killed me on American Idol is the song that got me. I sang in the freaking finale as like a big middle fingers.
Good for you. Well, that's a really good story. By the way, I've talked to a couple of people that have been through the American Idol process, and they have nothing but bad things to say. So you're not the first. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say don't go on there. It's hard because American Idol, they produce artists that go on to be successful. Yeah. So I guess you're taking the good with the bad, but it's a chance. It's not,
Yeah.
With The Voice, there is not a lot of super mega stars coming off of The Voice, but I will say it gives you the experience that you need to be a prepared artist. There are things that I did not know that I needed to know. You know, scheduling. Sometimes an artist is awake at 5 a.m. or even 4 a.m. because they have to travel, they have to get into hair and makeup, they have interviews, filming, all that stuff that you need to actually do as an artist. So they prep you for that. Not that they ever told me what to say, but they prepared me on how to do an answer question, right? So it's like, if the question was, who are you closest with in the family? They don't want the producer's voice that's asking that. So you would start the question by saying, the person that I'm closest with in the family is. So they teach you those things.
Nice.
And I would say also the staging was really weird for me because I thought I only had to focus on the song. And in my experience, all I do is run back and forth on a stage and I'm pointing at people and blah, blah, blah before I ever went on The Voice. I had no idea. You need to be at a certain place at a certain time for the camera to hit you. And you're thinking, you know, I'm at a lyric and I'm like, oh God, I got to walk up to here. And you're just hoping that your brain is going to keep singing instead of thinking, you know, okay, I got to walk these 5 steps. I got to stand here, you know. And then I also had to keep in mind what Reba was telling me, like, don't move at this part because this is a war song. This is not a dance song. And I can't help but music moves me. So I'm trying to stand still and sing at the same time because I don't want to make Reba mad so I can get to the next round. So, you know, you're learning all these things in such a short amount of time, and it's all valuable because I would say I've blown up. I've grown so much as an artist because of The Voice, and I think that American Idol steals your light. Like, they make it so awful. They want you to suffer while you're there so that you're earning your spot, you know?
Well, thanks for sharing that. I guess so you mentioned Reba. I was going to ask you, is there a moment? Well, first off, I was going to ask you, how much time did you actually get to spend with her kind of off camera? Was it very little? Was it more than you expected? And then is there a moment that sticks out to you where maybe it was just, you know, you and her or whatever, and you guys shared a moment?
So mine is a double-edged sword, and it kind of sounds like I'm like gloating here, but I did not get a lot of time with Reba when it came to rehearsals because I would sing my song twice and she'd say no notes and bye.
Oh, so she was just like, there's no feedback.
Yeah. And so I had to like kind of start messing up a little bit so I could spend more time with her. And I'd be like, oh, I don't really know what to do here. You know, I knew exactly what I was doing, but I just wanted more time with her, you know? So everybody else is getting like 45 minutes. I'm getting like 25 because, you know, she's like, there's nothing for me to tell you, you know? So it felt good. It felt good that I didn't need notes, but it also felt bad because I wanted more time with her, which in the end worked out for me anyways, because off camera, we did have special moments where, you know, she kind of helped me a little bit with the things that are important coming off of the show, you know, like what's important. She's like, you know, back in my day, it was like the most important thing was your manager, you know, because they would do all the work for you. Now, the most important thing is like social media because people don't care about developing artists anymore. They care about getting an artist when they're already developed, already branded, already have the numbers, and they can make money off of you. Right. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword at this moment where by the time you get to where you need to be, you're already a working business that's making enough money. So why do you need somebody to come in and help you? Right. But you have, again, catch-22, you kind of need them and they kind of need you. So Reba kind of taught me that. And Wynonna actually gave me the best advice that I don't think ever made TV, and it sticks with me. And she said that the most important thing that she found over the years of being an artist wasn't social media or even the fans or anything like that. It was having the right team around you. She said, even Jesus had 12 disciples. So if you have a weakness, you need to find somebody who has the strength where you're weak instead of just trying to make it work because you're going to fail if you try to do everything yourself. So if you're not good at organizing, find a crazy good organizer that keeps you on your, on your time. So I hold that really dear to my heart because I have a great team now. I have people that support me, and I would have, knowing me, I would have just done it all myself because I'm not a control freak, but it's hard to let go of something that you don't trust anybody else with because nobody's going to support you more than you support yourself, really. And then of course, after the fact, I got to go have dinner with Reba. So, just hanging out with Reba.
Okay.
From Rex,
Oh man.
they walked in, we went to Bourbon Steakhouse, and I called to reserve, and they were like, oh yeah, it's going to be like $2,500 just to reserve the room. And I was like, okay, well, I feel like I'm not going to spend that money because that's ridiculous. So hopefully she's just going to be okay with hanging out in public with me. When we got there, they were like, no, the owner knew that she was coming. So he was like, we're going to put you in a private room, no cost. So it was really cool. And as soon as Rex came in, you got little tiny Reba, and she's like, and then you got Rex, he's like, Jacquie, get me on. Like, he just was like, squeezed me and popped my spine. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, I loved You're More Than a Feeling. And it just went, it's just so funny to see that such a contrast in personalities between him and Reba. Reba's just a light anyways, but she's a gentle light, and he's just like this fireworks show, so those are some cool things that I got to experience with Reba. And I wanted to ask her a couple questions that were really important to me, and I got the answers that I needed. She asked me, after I was done asking my questions, she finally was like, I do have one question for you. And this is the best thing ever. I laughed so hard. Okay. I'm sorry that I have long-winded stories, but this is so good.
That's great. I love it.
After I asked her all these questions, because I was like, I don't want to say it because they're kind of personal, but she goes, I have a question for you. And I was like, sure, shoot. She goes, why didn't you choose me? And I was like,
There you go.
I was like, oh, wow. I didn't know that you were still holding on to this. She was like, I'm really upset that you didn't pick me. I thought I had that in the bag. And I was like, to be honest with you, Reba, I didn't think you'd understand the rock side of me. In my head, I was thinking Gwen or Niall would know me best because obviously Gwen comes from ska, grunge, rock era. And now she's married into country with Blake. And I've thought she's getting the best of both worlds right now. She had a couple duets come out with Blake. She understands more of the country music stuff. So she could see what I'm doing. She could see my process of marrying rock and country. And she didn't. She literally didn't see that. She was like, you're everything, but I'm leaning absolutely more towards bias, which is great. That was my best buddy. We got to go through the whole season together, But I had, she was upset with me that I didn't pick her. And I said, well, a lot of it is that, but also I feel like you didn't fight for me very much. I feel like, if anything, I almost picked John, which was way out of left field for me because he was fighting so hard. I mean, they edited it out, but he talked for like 20 minutes trying to convince me to go on his team. And I was so torn between Gwen and John. Niall barely said, a lot. He was just like, I think you could do these songs. I see the rock in you. Like, let's work on that. And John was like, screw these people. Listen, I got you, girl. And so I called my daughter up because I was like, what she says is what's going to go, because I can't decipher. And I feel like a child's innocence has a little divine intervention. So she picked Gwen. That started off. I'm grateful for Gwen because she gave us the best battle song. And I'm not going to speak bad about Reba, but her songs that she picked for the battles were not necessarily my style. So I was really grateful that I got Gwen just for that.
It was Jelly Roll, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Jelly Roll.
With Bias,
Yeah. Which again, full circle moment. I got to sing that song with
right.
him on stage. So, it's a catalyst. It moved a lot of stuff for me, and it gave me goals and more dreams and more aspirations. If I could make it this far, then I can make it this far. If I can make it that far, then I can make it further, So, yeah,
A little bit more confidence than the American Idol experience, I guess, right?
Absolutely. American Idol stole my confidence. The Voice gave it back tenfold.
Did Reba, did she understand your answer?
She did. She was like,
Yeah.
I get it. But she also came back she goes, first of all, and this was really cute because she was like defending herself, but she was like, just so you know, I mean, this was my first season, so I didn't know how they were going to like edit things. I didn't know what, time wise, what was appropriate for me to be talking. And I didn't know that I could just also say what somebody else had already said, because she goes, when John would speak, I didn't want to repeat what he said. Like I was taking what he said, or I didn't want to, So she goes, everything that he said was what I was feeling. But when it came to me, I just told you what he hadn't said. And so maybe that's why it came off as I wasn't fighting for you. She goes, but I wanted you so bad. And I am so glad I got to steal you. So.
Yeah. So when she stole you, were you like shocked?
No. I'm going to tell you the funniest story. Bias and I got teamed up, and part of us, obviously, and I think Bias and I have the same work ethic. We have the same honesty level too. So it's like, if we don't like something, we're going to say it. And we're also going to tell you the truth when it comes to a situation, right? So we both were scared that one of us were going to go home, because we were each other's support system throughout the whole show. And from that beginning, it was me, Bias, and Steve that all supported each other right off the bat. So I was kind of bummed that I was going against my friend, but also I was like, you know what? I just looked at him, I go, we are making this a duet. This is not a battle. We are singing this like a freaking team, because we're not going home. Like neither of us are. We rehearsed every single day except for one day. One day we did a vocal rest. The rest, we would do it for like an hour to 2 hours a day, just rehearsing everything. I'm getting chills just thinking about it again, my sins. And when we went on that stage, the cameras went down. They broke. So we were postponed an hour. And so you have all this adrenaline that was built up, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm deflated, right? So Bias and I talked, and he goes, man, I'm just so scared that she's going to pick you. And I said, dude, I literally left our rehearsal with Gwen crying because I knew she was picking you. I knew how she was talking to you, how she was like looking at you. I felt the discernment in my heart. She's picking you. I said, and Reba's picking me. She's going to save me. And he's like, no, man, I'm just really nervous. I said, I bet you $100. So if you leave here, at least you leave with $100. I bet you $100 Gwen's picking you and Reba's hitting that button. And it happened. And he paid me that $100.
That's awesome. What a great story. Yeah. All right.
I just thought, if he felt like he was still getting something out of it, that, we both could be confident going onto that stage. And, we're the only ones that had like a little back and forth thing before we got on stage. It was just kind of cool doing it with my friend. And we've performed it a couple more times since then. And, life is funny, because somebody can be your closest friend in the moment of these stressful things. And then you go back to life and you're like, you barely talk to them. Like we text maybe once every couple months, like, hey, just checking in.
Yeah, but it's those moments that they're there, and maybe that's all that they're really not needed, but it served the purpose that was needed.
Right. It's like, God, I believe in God, and I feel like he put Bias in my life at that time. He put Huntley in my life. Huntley and I were so close. He was like my little, even though he's bigger than me, he was my little big brother, So And we were kind of like, I feel we were kind of like the cornerstone of everybody. You know, they would come to my room if they needed notes, if they wanted notes on a song. Huntley would text me to come to his room. He always wanted me to come to his room because my room was set at 76 and his room was set at 62. Vocally, I need my room to be warm. He's like, I need my crunchy voice at 62 degrees. So he'd be like, come to my room. And so I'd put my blanket or sweatshirt on, go and record him so he'd have video to send to Niall. And there's just so many things that happened in the season that people don't know very much about. You know, I braided Huntley's hair for every round. The one time that he was on video with a bun, he texted me. He was so mad that I left because they let me go back home to see my daughter for 4 days.
So you had to put it in the bun.
So he was like, man, why you have to leave when I have to do my filming? He's like, I don't have anybody to braid my hair and I got to wear this stupid bun.
Well, so the voice, obviously your voice is incredible. I'd like to ask you a few questions just about songwriting, if you don't mind. So in terms of like your inspiration and process and kind of where thoughts and words come from, you've got Bad Habit, which is your awesome Broadway, Nashville, honky tonk bar banger kind of vibe. And then something like Past the Pain, which is sort of the extreme, reflecting on trauma and challenges and things like that. I guess, where do you see yourself as a songwriter today? And where do you draw from being a mom? Do you draw from broken relationships? Do you draw from the time growing up, watching your mom support you?
I would say that songwriting was a growing pain for me. I've always written like little things here and there. And then with Lace and Thorn, I basically just wrote with Keave, and he and I would, you know, he would play guitar and then I'd hear a melody and we'd start writing on things of that nature. And one of the songs, he had a really bad ex-girlfriend. And whenever she would drink, she would turn into like a horrible, like Jekyll and Hyde. She was so sweet when she was sober, like the best person. And then she would drink and she would turn into this monster. And so I wrote about it, and she was at shows while I was singing about her, you know? So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to come from within. It could be an exterior inspiration. I would say that writing with other people it was a struggle at first. I did not, again, want to let go of the control of my feelings, first of all. I didn't want to be vulnerable because that would make me feel weak. And I didn't want somebody else to supersede what I wanted in a song. And I had to learn, and I think my producer, this goes back to Jason Mader being my producer, giving me some hard lessons as a songwriter, as an artist. And he's like, this is the industry, Jacquie. Like, you have to let go of some control, and you have to know that you're not the best writer in the room. And if you are, you're in the wrong room. You need people that are going to sharpen your knife, not just cut along with you. And that is really, I think, what helped grow me as an artist as well. Is now I can sit down with an artist and I can say, okay, the topic, I go into a session, let's just say, you know, I have a session at Curb or something. I'll usually go into a session with at least 10 topics. And I'll say, these are the things, these are like one-liners that I thought about, which would be cool to write about. That's the spirit, came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. I came into the room prepared to write. I didn't know what I wanted to write. I had all these things, but I didn't even say it to them. I was like, I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm getting the line, that's the spirit, like a cheerleading anthem. And they were like, okay, let's roll with it. And I told them I wanted the same BPM as Dancing in the Country by Tyler Hubbard, because I wanted a dancey song. So that we put the BPM in, and then we just started writing from there. And I think it's easier for me to write to a BPM, just a click. And then once we get kind of a melody, to start forming the music around it, like what we did at the camp, writers camp in Joshua Tree. That's how we did it. My producer set up his whole station And we got out guitars and we would just start going. And once we heard a lick, once we heard something, a little melody, we would just start running with it. So I know I've come a long way from the beginning of being a songwriter to now, how much I enjoy going into something now, whereas before I was so uptight because I didn't think that people would understand me, or I didn't think that people would let me have control of the session in my own artistry. And I know that my own artistry now is supported by the right writers. Like if you have the right people in the room, they're going to support your idea. They're just going to help you word it better, you know? So where they come from, I'll be driving and I'll go, oh my God, that's such a cool line. And I'll write it down really quick at a red light, you know, like, okay, I got this on my list of things that I want to write about. But I have a song called Other Side that's going to be coming out. It's going to be my next release after That's the Spirit. And it's about, now this one came out of nowhere because I wanted a ballad, but I wanted a ballad about like something sexy and sensual. And it ended up not being that at all. I was like bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, you know, I'm in a room of like 4 other guys. And so they're all like, I got to go mow the lawn and fix the gutters. There's a woman crying, you know? So I was like, you know, the only person who kind of locked in with me, Jordan and Steve both locked in with me because they're both really emotionally inept, I would say. And Jordan was fasting our whole writing session because he really felt like God was going to speak through that.
Oh.
So when I started writing this song, it was about my abusive relationship that I was in previous to, I was in it about eight and a half years ago. And just out of nowhere, I mean, Steve was like, just tell me why the original song that I wanted to write was called The Pleasure Is Mine. I wanted to write about how I'm a serving person, that even if you hurt me, the pleasure is mine to serve you because that's my fulfillment in love. And he's like, we got to get deeper than that. Like, what is the root of this? Like, what are you really trying to say? And I was like, well, on paper, they were like arguing with me. They're like, we don't like that line. And I was like, on paper, it makes sense. You know, I was in an abusive relationship. He almost took my life. And then I got out of it and I reestablished myself. And then I found a new guy who understands me. And the pleasure is mine to serve him because he understands me and loves me. And you know, I got to the other side. And they go, that's the line. Other side. Yeah. We're writing that. And then that's how we wrote Other Side. And it's kind of insane that that's how that, I was like breaking down, like, you got to write this with me. I know what I'm talking about. And they're like, no, you don't. It was a pull. And once we got going, I could not let up. I was writing. We wrote the song in like 15 minutes. I just wrote the whole thing. And
well, it kind of goes back to Wynonna's point, although she was probably making a broader point about just having a good support system. But that's probably a little anecdote to support what she was saying, right? Because you were down one path, they sort of told you to veer left, you know, and here you go. You've got something even better, right?
Yeah. I posted it on TikTok, just a clip of me singing at Whiskey Jam. And, you know, I broke down. It was my first time performing it live. And I broke down at the end of it. And everybody in the crowd, I had grown men crying, coming up to me with like tears in their eyes. And they're like, we've never even been in that position, but we felt your pain and we felt your success, you know, of getting to the other side. And it was such a beautiful story. And it's already starting to get a lot of traction. So I'm thinking I had a plan to release all these party hits for summer. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to do That's the Spirit and I'm going to release Other Side because women need this freaking song. They need it. So I'm just going to release it. And I know it's coming out at a weird time. It's coming out in the middle of summer, but I want to get that message out there because I know people do look up to me, which is crazy, right? They look up to me. They want me to, I don't know, like give them a message. I feel like sometimes, and that's a big one is If you're in such a crappy relationship and you're holding on to the breadcrumbs of love that they're giving you, you're only holding yourself back from happiness. Like, get out safely and allow yourself real, true happiness. You're not going to get it with that person. That person has already diminished your light. You know, find your light and you will attract happiness again. And that's what I did. This will be my 7th year with my fiance. And this is my longest relationship. And the guy he's never asked me if I'm talking to anybody else. He's never checked my phone. He's never made me feel bad for wanting to go out with my friends. He has never even raised his voice at me, ever. He's never called me a name. He is just a matter of fact. We respect each other. It's so healthy that I even had to go to counseling to accept his healthy love because I was so used to dysfunctional love. So I think if I can do it and people go, oh my God, she's so strong. Look at her, you know, working, busting her butt. She's so strong. She's a mom. She's an artist. At one point, I wasn't strong. Even the strongest people have their, you know, weak. It's like a virus. You know, they find a crack in the system to get in. Right. That was love was my weakness because I wanted somebody to love me so bad, and I let it overcome everything about me. Now I know that wasn't love. Jealousy isn't love. Controlling isn't love. None of that is love. It's just somebody holding you as an object, and that's not love. So anyway, I've learned my lesson, and I want other women to learn their lesson.
Yeah, no, that's really important. Well, the one of the cool things too is like you broke the cycle for yourself, right? But how grateful are you that you found your fiance for the sake of your daughter, you know?
And that's another thing.
I mean, for your daughter to see that play out in real life and have it as a model.
Yeah. I mean, she was young enough that she didn't know what I was going through.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, one day she'll hear an interview of mine and she'll realize like, oh my God, you know, she knows that there was somebody before her dad. Right. And she knows that her dad and I are better off friends. And she knows Jesse as, you know, since she was like, I think 14 or 16 months, he's been in her life. So that's who she knows as her stepdad, you know. And so I think I saved her. Really, she was in the forefront of my mind. I'm like, this is not what I want for her. I don't want her to have to learn as hard as I had to learn to know that this isn't right. I'm done.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm so done with letting people take advantage of me and use my kindness and use me and drain my bank account because I'm so freaking toxically giving because I just want their love, you know?
Yeah.
And so I broke that cycle and she has changed my life in so many ways. I mean, ultimately, she's the one who gave me the confidence to be a singer because I was like, if I let her believe that fear is in the forefront of your mind and you can't do anything because of it, she's never going to succeed in anything that she wants to do, even if I support her, because she's going to look at me and go, she didn't do it. So now, on the other end of that is I'm doing it, but there are times where I have to sacrifice being a mom too. So it's like last night, she was crying because we were supposed to have a movie night and I had to move my band rehearsal to last night. And she's like, I know you have to work, but can't you just move it to another day because you already moved it? And we were supposed to have a movie night. And I'm like, I promise that we will have the best movie night. We'll do 2 movies. We'll do double snacks. I had to like bribe her to let me go to work, you know? So it's a double-edged sword. It really is.
By the way, where'd you meet Jesse?
I used to DJ, and this owner of a bar in town asked me to do their like anniversary building business party type thing. Mm-hmm. So I DJ'd it, and he doesn't really like do anything. He's not like a partier or anything like that. But he just so happened to had come that night And his friend
Nice.
was like, you need to meet him. And I was like, no. I'm like, I was looking at him all night. He was looking at me all night, but he didn't say anything to me. So I was like, well, whatever. I'm not gonna, if he might have a girlfriend. And the guy was like, he doesn't have a girlfriend. Like, you need to meet him. And so I was like, I'm not going to meet him right now, but I will go give him my card. So I went up to him. I had my business card and I said, I don't know why. I actually don't ever get nervous, but I feel shy and flustered right now. So I'm just going to give you my card. And if you're interested, call me. We'll go to dinner or whatever. And I left. I packed up my car. I left. And at the time, I was kind of seeing somebody. We weren't like exclusive, but I was kind of dating him. So I had gone over to his house and I got the text from him and he goes, this is Jesse. I would love to take you to dinner. And I looked up at the guy and I go, I'm calling it quits with you. I'm done. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I met somebody and I left. And that was it.
Good for you. Jesse's girl.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. All right. Well, I'm so happy for you. You look so happy with all the things going on and love and motherhood and everything. So it was awesome to talk with you. I guess I have one final question. I ask everybody this because I'm a big believer in curiosity. I guess at this point in your career and where you're at in your life, what are you most curious about?
I wish I had a crystal ball because I want to see if all this work pays off. I hear people's stories like Lainey Wilson. She talks about like how many nights she cried and how many, nights she was so frustrated because she put in like 12 years before she even went viral. And she went to every single record label in Nashville, every pub company in Nashville, and they all told her no. And look at her now. She's a freaking megastar. And I'm thinking, I haven't even gotten there yet. I've had one label meeting. I've had a few meetings with top end management teams. I've had a few conversations with booking agencies. I haven't even clipped the iceberg, and here I am crying that I'm not doing as much as I wish I could. I'm not booking as much as I wish I could. I think about my band. I think about, they need to put food on their table. So when I'm not booking as much, they're not working as much. And that's a lot of stress on me.
Sure.
So it's tough because I want to be so grateful for everything that I'm receiving because I know it's way further than I was even a year ago, 2 years ago. And I'm so grateful. I really am. But in my heart of hearts, I want more. And I'm not going to stop until I get it. I want to be in a stadium that's sold out. I want to be on tour. I want to have a tour bus. I want to do all the things that I look up to these artists doing. Lainey Wilson, Luke Combs, Chris Stapleton. Like, I want that. And I'm going to freaking get it. I just got to keep working, got to keep grinding.
Well, of course you're going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I really appreciate it. And I guess I kind of led one of the questions, and you kind of alluded to it here. So being in Oregon, right, you're not in the Nashville kind of scene day in and day out. And some people might say, well, like, that's a huge disadvantage. But then I guess, tying it back to Reba, and I don't know where she was, all of her career, but I know she's from Oklahoma. And I kind of take that she viewed that as a strength and not a weakness. I guess, can you draw on that as an example that you don't necessarily have to be inside of Nashville to make those dreams come true,
I think, again, a double-edged sword, because there are some old school people that I've spoken with that said it's essential for me to live there, right? Because you got to be somewhere at the drop of a hat sometimes for opportunities.
Right.
But also, I'm sorry to say, but Nashville does not, because you have so many artists in one area, they don't need to pay very well at all to these poor artists that are literally working 2 jobs sometimes and then, working on Broadway till 2:00 in the morning to get tips. From what I understand, it's $50 to $100 a person on that stage a night. plus tips. And they run the circuit. Sometimes nothing ever comes of that. You're singing every single night of the week and nothing ever comes of that. Sometimes people go to the correct writers round, they play a song and they go, we want that for our artist. We'll pay you this much to take it from you. Or sometimes they'll go, you are the perfect artist for that song that you wrote. I want to sign you, right?
Mm.
Being in Oregon means I'm getting paid I can put food on my table. Okay. I'm not hoping that I get enough tips at night. I can fly into Nashville whenever somebody wants me. I have that leeway, and I explain that to them when I'm in the meeting. Yes, I don't live here, but you tell me you need me here on these dates, I'll be there because I have a village that helps me take care of my daughter so that I can chase my dreams. But again, double-edged sword is, yes, you do kind of have to be in their faces a lot of the time because out of sight, out of mind, right? Will I eventually move to Nashville? I would love, my answer to that is I would love to be so busy that I don't have a hub. I would love to be on tour and need to take my daughter with me and have a tutor on board so that my daughter can travel with me, my family can travel with me, and my fiance can come visit me whenever he's, missing me, and I can come home when I'm not working. I get that question a lot. Are you going to move to Nashville, or do you feel like you need to be in Nashville? And some people say yes. And then there are some people that are like, no, because it's about social media now. So it's like, if you go viral on social media, it doesn't matter where you're at,
Right.
It doesn't matter if you live in Nashville or not.
I love your answer about being so busy that you don't even have to have a hub.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So, all right. Well, thanks for
Sorry.
I'm
so long-winded.
No, thanks for that. That was good. When you were talking about Reba earlier, I'm like, yeah, she was kind of an outsider to Nashville in many ways, right?
Yeah, she has her house in Oklahoma. She has a house in Tennessee, of course. She just bought a house in Beverly Hills. Her hub now, because of Happy's Place, is in California. So, I think it doesn't necessarily, it's not parallel to your brand, I don't think. I mean, I do love being in Nashville. I try to go once a month for at least a week to make my presence. I'm doing writers rounds as much as I can, whiskey jams, all that kind of stuff. So, but there are literally like no shows out there that I can get into that if I put on a showcase, if I put on my own show, but nobody's going to hire me to do a show out there because they have so many artists. So it's like, yes, it's a home to singers and musicians, but it's also kind of a double-edged sword because you're swimming with the sharks. And although they're really nice sharks, you're swimming in a sea of musicians. And how do you shine brighter?
Yeah. Okay. Well, no matter where you're living, you're going to do great. And it's been an honor to talk with you. I love the conversation. Congrats on all the success and good luck the rest of the year with all the new singles and all the things. So Jacquie, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.